Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, speed gaming fans around the world, Link to the Past Randomizer fans alike. You're tuned in to Speed Gaming 3 for another Week 1 Link to the Past Randomizer League Season 2 match. Today between Illus of the Last Locationers and Yagamoth of the Sexagannons. I'm joined today by Lin Lin Lin. I'm Uday Monistic. How you doing today, Lin Lin Lin?
I'm doing great. This is game two between Goomba took game one with Freddy just 2 minutes ago, and now we have the second game already. I'm really excited about it. How about you?
Certainly nice to see an entire series between two teams finishing, partway through the week. You kind of expect with 64 matches a week that a lot of them will happen later in the week, but everybody's been pretty proactive. We've had a lot of rando already. And you'll see next to the names of these teams 3 points and 0 points, respectively. You get 3 points for your team if you win the race. And I believe it's one for a tie, right?
Yeah, it's one for a tie.
But with that, we'll get started. We get an early half magic out of the Sanctuary. We're getting a Link's House start from Yagamoth, showing 10 arrows.
Yeah, I know both like studied a little bit. Yagamoth liking the uncle start, while Illus always going with that sang start. Getting rewarded with half magic, a very early half magic always helps, even though you don't have anything to use magic now, but it will help for sure.
Yeah, it's always a great peace of mind to have. And we get an early tree, or tier 1 tree pull, which is going to be bombs, which is really great for Yagamoth. Gives options for potentially considering the front of escape. Illus will have a chance to get those bombs here, so won't have to spend any rupees for it. We did also get a very brief glimpse of a map check. Ooh, a sword in the forest, which is nice. That map check revealed crystals at Tower of Hera and Eastern Palace with a desert pendant. Neither of those being 5 or 6.
And Yagamoth actually taking those bombs into escape. Bombs is a little bit slower than Illus has a sword right now, which would make front of escape if he ever goes to, which he probably will, faster. But it's not that slow. It's all about resources as well. Like you need 5 bombs for the whole thing, with 2 pots on the ball and chain guard. If you don't miss any, obviously.
Right, and pretty easy to miss them if you're not using specific setups. Well, that'll give us an early Kakariko check, of course, for Illus, and an early front of escape for Yagamoth. A lot of locations about to be checked real quick here. Looking like a good bomb strat if the guard gets over, and nice.
Oh, already rewarded with the battle in CAC. Not gonna have to come back for that sick kid. Always nice to get it out of the way very early.
Adding to the bonuses here, more bombs and just enough rupees for the bottle vendors, so we can get a full clear of everything here in Kakariko.
I don't know if that bee in that bottle is actually a good bee or not. You might want to sell it if you're low on money.
Uh-oh. Unfortunate bomb placement for Yagamoth. Actually not getting the guard with the second one because it was dropped a little bit too soon.
It's okay, like that's the hard part. Ball engine guard just needs 2 pots at this point. I mean, you're not doing that with bombs.
But we have easy access to replenishment once we get back to the overworld, so Yagamoth, even if he had to use 2 of them, would be fine. Wow, not a whole lot from the front of escape.
Yeah, just map and 2 pieces, alright. Not even the small key to point to something with glove.
Well, all things considered, even with a little bit of weirdness with the key guard, honestly, that escape with bombs was pretty efficient overall.
Yeah, that's standard players. You need to learn how to do escape with bombs, since it can be one of your starting weapons. Not a whole lot in Kakariko as well. I think there was nothing so far. aside from like convenience, bottle, blue mail, obviously.
Interestingly enough, our Hoarder Crab has 20 ruby drops, which plus the 300, or I guess 400 you'll find in Kakariko. That puts Yagamoth in likely Zora rupee range, leaving the town.
I mean, definitely. I mean, there's also another crab on the way to Mini Moldum Cave, so Illus might check it on its way. But definitely a good place to farm money. I mean, a good way to farm money.
Well, now that we've finished clearing out the town, Illus is going to head south. I don't believe Illus actually checked the library or race game.
He did pretty quickly. I think it was dry as well. But now he's actually taking the sword into his cave.
As you mentioned, it will be considerably more efficient. I'm going to save at least 5 to 10 seconds in just killing enemies. Well, so we haven't really found a whole lot that's going to point us to going anywhere. We do have a weapon, which will make dark rooms a little bit more palatable than they would have been otherwise. So maybe we might see someone try the eastern area after completing some of these overlapping checks. But I got to think Mini Moldorm Cave is the only place you want to go next, right?
I mean, definitely dam into Mini Moldorm, the obvious play. Or if you want to spice it up a little bit, you could try your chance at the Gina before going to Mini Moldorm Cave. But there's not like you're doing the South Shore anyways before going to Eastern, for sure.
Yeah, I think there might be some potential for a different story if it was a bow or a lamp, before we got to this point. An excellent spin kill on the first key guard by Illus there. Taking care to make sure that the guard dies as close to the door as possible. There's a little bit of like fine manipulation you can do to try and catch it at a certain point too, but certainly a much faster way to kill compared to 2 bombs.
The only thing I could see is doing, which I'm pretty sure he's not gonna do, would be death warping out of here and trying his chance at the Dark Cross.
I mean, it does make a lot more sense in my mind having the fighter sword. You can at least, navigate efficiently and kind of protect yourself. Low heart situation kind of makes it a little less appealing if you don't have at least a sword.
The thing is, like, you already found the map in the front of the escape, so you know it's a small key that will take you to the back or an item in this Dark Cross.
Well, Illus is not going to waste any time for throwing pots. We'll actually go for an 8/ strat, which unfortunately, because of the green guard, ended up being slower. But it is well set up for a death warp.
Wait, nope.
If he didn't get the full heal.
I think he was actually setting up for the death warp, but like 5 hearts, he just decided to get out.
Sometimes the game just spites you like that. Well, if that ends up putting Yagamoth at Dark Cross for something important faster, that'd be a pretty funny thing to look back on.
Actually, not checking that I'm going straight for Mini Moldon Cave.
Yeah, in a perfect world, there'd be a scenario where you need to go to Swamp first, or you need to go to Swamp before you would go back to the dam. And if that were to happen, you could do the legendary only one drain.
I mean, there's another play called I drained the dam anyway, I'm just going to swim without a hookshot.
That never happens. Not even once.
Oh.
Ooh, look at that.
Oh. Those are some nice items. Boots and hookshot. Not that it opens a lot so far. Like, boots only open bone frogs. Hookshot doesn't do much right now. Still
It's like the hey, do you like Super Speed Cave? Now, actually, Illus does save some extra time in this check with the King of Samaria, which might be important later.
King of Mario, like in this routing, if he goes to Gina, there's a pretty smooth route you can do from Bone Crocs. Checking Bone Crocs into taking the Whirlpool to check Ice Rod Cave. And that king actually opened up that possibility with Splash Deletion.
That's a good point. More until on the screen. I didn't think about that. That whirlpool over by northern Kakariko or northeast of Kakariko is a commonly forgotten about one. Well, you mentioned Nagina before. Illus with boots has a very fast way of getting there. A nice routing advantage to save some time in the dam, but unfortunately the 10 arrows will cause a save and quit here 10 minutes into the seed. Well, that B was pretty good in my opinion.
Fortunately, Illus doesn't have money right now. He might actually check the Lumberjack instead. We'll see. He's definitely checking those Bone Crocs.
Yeah, solid case of, taking advantage of what little progression you've received.
Oh, you don't even need to splash the lead if you have a flip. If you have flip, I guess.
Way to god route the seed before the runner god routed the seed.
If he checks the bush grab, he might find money now that the flip is just we'll just give him enough money for Zora, but he's not doing that, unfortunately. And there's a moon pearl in Isolate Cave.
Okay, so it's actually really important that Illus takes the time to do the route that you mentioned. And like you said, that whirlpool is really convenient in this scenario, but Illus appears to be heading west instead. Oh, never mind.
The main issue is doesn't have money for Zora. He's gonna find the moon pearl, but yeah, if there's no money on Hobo or
this waterfall cave. Well, it isn't money, but it sure feels cash money. So that gives us a fire source. We have a lot of very interesting item combinations working at play here. Now, turns out if Illus does actually come here all the way to check the Zora ledge, you will get bailed out by the 300 there.
Might just want to look right here. Yeah, you do want to right here. Oh, that's a nice.
Ooh. All the blue things behind the flippers, Ice Rod on Lake Hylia Island, and Flute actually being purchased at a good rate. I would say 500 for fast travel. I'll take that any day.
And Yagamoth's not gonna lose too much time here because he's gonna get the flippers while activating the like that little nice routing that Illus did is actually negated. He actually skips the flippers.
And the additional nice thing working for Yagamoth here is having done all of that through a water walk. This is considerably more efficient. And if Yagamoth wishes to check, or wait, what do we have on Hobo? That was Hobo junk? Or am I mixing up item locations now?
Remember. 20 rupees according to our tracker. Worldwide 1P.
Yeah, so and thanks, shout outs to Worldwide for doing that. Appreciate that. The nice thing is for that there'll be an opportunity to do that through the Dark World with the mirror location. So could still route that in even with the water walk and not really spend much time getting that one isolated location later.
Oh, Illus actually deciding not to do the loop.
Well, there's a fairly high chance that with Lamp and Hookshot, this Death Mountain has essential equipment for us on this pass. So remains to be seen if Illus can find a Power Glove elsewhere that'll allow him to continue that chain upwards. It would probably be catastrophic for it to be on the old man here.
If I mean, if the glove is actually not down there, but up at the mountain, he's gonna be locked into doing Zora very soon. But yeah, he's going to Eastern probably.
Yeah, so the likely double dip, unless we do happen to find a bow in Eastern, could end up being quite an extra chunk of time that against a player like Yagamoth who's doing a hook climb, or a sword climb, I mean, I should add, stuff like that kind of movement tech. You know that you can't give up moments like like a double dip in a early light world dungeon. Well, still a lot of items to find here in the light world. We're gonna get 7 here from Paradox Cave and an 8th from Spiral Cave, and Illus has all of Eastern Palace here. Nothing too profitable yet here in Paradox Cave. Illus does have the best equipment combination to check the rest of this dungeon, though, sans the actual boss itself.
There's the cave actually on East Death Mountain. And the Massasaur. I wonder what the seed is trying to tell us.
It's times like this I wish I could do like the Ganon laugh from the Wind Waker. Yeah, as you're pointing out though, Aghanim certainly on the table. That was all the components we could possibly wish for. 2 different ways of getting there.
So unless there's a glove here or another sword in the big chest in Eastern, then Illus might just have to go back to Zora because that's the only thing. Actually, there's another thing, which is doing Dark Cross. Now in logic with the lamp.
It's hard to kind of imagine how, Yagamoth would be approaching Dark Cross, because, I mean, let's just say there's something important there. Would you be doing that on your way up to Castle Tower if you thought, hey, I'd probably almost certainly have to go through Aghanim to get Dark World?
That's a good question, actually. I mean, for real, it's kind of a no-brainer since he skipped Zora. But might be the key, that's the thing, that, like, make you go to the back or just the glove, which at this point I don't think it is. I mean, even the glove, you need two items for Dark World access at this point, and you're not gonna get both of them, so it's a negative, probably, unless there's a key and both of them are in the back of the cave, which I don't think it's gonna be.
So, I mean, of course, we'll have to wait and see what we end up finding in Dark Cross, or whether that gets us to the back of, Escape, as you're mentioning, all the way at the back. But, I mean, that could have potential implications. I can't see Yagamoth probably checking that for a while unless the Dark World access, to the rest of the Dark World dries up after Aghanim.
I mean, logically, it's have a lot already, having the flippers and the hookshot. You can already go all the way around doing the world. Or you just go to the pod and try your luck of not being bow locked. Oh, there's a glove. But that glove kind of puts Illus away from the flute right now.
Yeah, so I mean, it does mean that we didn't need the flute to get to the mountain. So we're not sure yet if the flute is required. Seems pretty likely, though. I guess we'll have to see what Misery Mire area has, or the dungeon itself. That may have been the first hoarder crab that Illus saw, and that would be a very frustrating thing to see, based on the way that the routing that Illus took avoided them entirely.
Definitely. I mean, there's no telling when he's going back to Zora, and at this point, you're just less location hit, because you orphaned it.
Well, the one upside here is that we do have boots and all of the things to give ourselves fast speed in all situations, so despite not having the flute, a little bit of it's mitigated at least. I am proud of both of these runners for doing sword climbs here on Death Mountain. Alright, well, that'll take Illus all the way to the east side of Death Mountain as Yagamoth also commits to a double. I'm sorry, I can't think of the word I'm not able to say here. A double dip, excuse me, a double dip of Eastern Palace. So no time loss for either of these two from their routing. They're both covering all the same tracks. Yagamoth having a little bit of an advantage with the flute.
Just depends on whether or not Yagamoth decides to do the back of escape from here before going to Aga.
So the other remaining glove in the world could potentially have some important implications for how these two diverge as soon as they get to the Dark World. Having an extra glove on hand and you find, say, the Titan's Mitts would give Illus some potential advantages for being in the Village of Outcasts area, kind of just tying up checks completely all in one go. Whereas, if we don't find it quickly enough, Yagamoth will eventually have to hit Dark Cross again to get to the far back of the escape. Well, looks like we're pretty much at that moment here for, well, we were for a second, but this archer is just elite sniper. Where we're heading up to the castle towers, so we're going to find out here if Yagamoth intends to check the back of escape yet.
It's quite an odd situation for Illus, because like he's one piece away from Darkwood, but taking those hard, I'm guessing he's just gonna do Aga at this point. Doing Dark Cross, so gonna get that cloud.
Well, that's good news for Yagamoth being thorough and not missing anything. However, Illus will actually end up being the first one up the tower. Master Sword climb, there are a lot of well-established and well-practiced strats. Double spins on gold guards, pretty commonly used. Very safe strat as well. You get to preserve your sword beams if you're trying to use them, particularly in rooms like this one. Depending on if you wanted to in the NMG run, for example, preserve a prize pack. They're shuffled in Randomizer, so we don't care too much about that.
It's still nicer to climb that with Fire Sword. Yagamoth actually saving quitting from here, but has to go back because I mean it's faster, anyways. Especially with blue mail and a lot of hearts, you don't really want to death warp here.
Well, Illus having a bit of a party in the maze room. Those 3 guards did not want him to have any success in that room at all. Otherwise, a relatively uneventful climb so far for Illus, getting through pretty much all these rooms without major issue after that labyrinth. Has a few more combat screens here to work with, has pretty conventional equipment. Without a boomerang, might see a strange circle of pots room from both of these two. Oh, that was really nice. Illus managed to grab that key just as it was over the railing. As you would normally clink the railing with the hook shot, it's really good heads-up awareness of where you can actually get the hitbox on that.
So it's a really nice trick to know that you can do that with a hook shot, and can only do that in random still.
And Illus going for the hook speed during the Aga cutscene, a time-old tradition. Well, at a point where any NMG runner would be sweating profusely at the RNG ahead, we are entering the Aghanim fight. If you're not familiar with how the fight works, the first attack will always be a reflectable shot, and it's a total of 5 attacks in the pattern. 2, 3, and 4 are a 50-50 chance of that, or one of these blue ball attacks, which you can't do anything with. 5th attack will always be lightning, which you can do nothing with. So at most, if we hit back all of the shots, we can have a maximum of 15 non-reflectable blue balls. In the worst case scenario, ooh, Yagamoth pulling off the key grab as well. But typically 2 or 3 is about average.
We already have 2, so Aga's not being nice here. Hey. I guess it's getting better right now, or not.
There isn't a whole lot that you can do to actually make this fight faster, but if you're smart, you can try to knock him towards the center of the arena, so that his warp distance on average is a little bit less. It's like the only time save, really, besides grabbing the wall if you have a shield. Well, almost a high 5, maybe a baton pass. We get a Dark World map check. I saw 5 and 6 on Swamp and Mire.
Yeah, T-Zone was a pendant, and I think Ice Palace was green pendant.
That looked right. Well, so we know
will
the
need that
fruit's
fruit.
required. Alright, so I know it's like really unlikely, but the one thing that would super bail out Illus right now from that flute is if we found a mirror right here at Catfish. That's the best case scenario for him right now. Otherwise,
That is very unlikely.
yeah, it's going to be a long shot that Illus ends up back at Zora for quite a while. Well, no such luck. Not really feeling the love at all from that. Illus is hook speeding the heck out of there, but will have a lot of Dark World accessible to him. Has a bit of a choice here. Doesn't have a hammer to go to Palace of Darkness or anything, but can go either there or across the river to the rest of the Dark World.
I mean, you could go to Pop if you want to, but without bow or hammer, it's kind of a really tough play to make, in my opinion. But you can still go.
I would definitely consider it to be a heavy gamble. Well, with the flute at Zora, it's going to be quite a while before Illus has a chance to check the Misery Mire area, which I don't think. Oh.
Oh.
All right. Well, of course, we all know that Yagamoth's going to see that sooner rather than later, but it's just funny that we were just talking about the mirror.
I mean, at this point, you like Illus is also going back for Gravel's Ledge and King's Tomb.
And
Or not,
has the logical means to cross back over the river, so, I mean, while I don't think he would continue all the way to Palace of Darkness, maybe that'd be enough to incentivize him to head towards Zora. I don't know, do you think he would be saving quitting after this sequence?
Probably not. Like the only thing that opens right now, kinda, would be Toph Hera. Kind of a tough choice to make right now.
Well, King's Tomb not going to give us anything that will push the needle one way or the other, but there is still Graveyard Ledge, and Illus is not leaving that? What was that bonk about?
It's just like you know that there's a little like wall in the Dark Hole that you want to go across, because if you don't, you're just gonna mirror bonk on it.
Alright, so that's like 200 IQ positioning. I gotcha. Lots of love in the overworld. Not a lot of love felt from these runners. Illus will be continuing west, it looks like. Well, that takes care of the northern dark world, but still a lot of stuff in Village of Outcasts and Skull Woods. We see Yagamoth skipping Graveyard Ledge and King's Tomb, which, as we know now, is actually a great decision. However, potential saving cliff
Potential
force
soft lock here is his lot.
Oh.
I mean, that'll just put him on, I mean, Gravel's Ledge and King's Tomb on his way, I guess.
Yeah, little things like that, little mishaps. You can't really predict that it's going to happen to you. You think you're good on the dash. You try to commit to it because stopping the dash by adjusting could potentially drop you into the pit as well.
And by the way, that is one of the V31 feature now that chest doesn't necessarily have a small key, and unfortunately for Yagamoth, he didn't have one.
Yeah, it's a throwback to old school randomizer for this game. Before that was changed so that it assumes that you'd have the worst possible use of keys and to avoid those potential soft locks. But it does add a little bit more diversity into the game as far as where you can find things, what stuff can be in Skull Woods. But definitely something that can trap you in the worst ways. Alright, well, Illus has avoided the pit monster and will be heading towards Thieves Town, it looks like, or maybe Village of Outcasts to clear that out before entering in. Without a hammer, we can't finish it completely, necessarily.
But it's Pendant Thieves Town. Let's see how much he wants to commit to that at this. If you're doing like a world tour like this in the Dark World, like, and you still didn't find anything, you might want to commit to it, kinda.
I mean, because otherwise you're hoping on the South Dark World and Hype Cave loop, which, for all you know, has just as much likelihood of being dud. We do have what we need for Swamp Palace, except for that hammer.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're You kind of really want that hammer before going down, so how much are you willing to commit to T-Sound at this point? I mean, you're definitely entering, but how far are you going? Depending on how many items you find in the front.
Are you saying that a lot of people out there would consider stealing from the thieves?
Probably. Okay, that's one item. Huh. Interesting layout. So one of those chests is gonna be the big key, and the last one. If it's an item, I can see Illus like completely being here.
I mean, the thing is, with the equipment that we have, this isn't that long of a dungeon compared to, say, like, walking through here.
I think there's a chance you're leaving an item behind as well. Illus deciding to leave here.
Yeah, if there was a point that you were going to leave the dungeon, that's it. So, I mean, you know, Illus, if you were planning on going that way to head south through the Dark World, that's the exact right moment to do it. Well, with only power gloves, we won't be able to return towards the blacksmith chain. Couldn't even pick up the blacksmith in the first place, but we won't be able to go back to Village of Outcasts from this route, so we're committing to the rest of the South Dark World loop at this point.
And that's a very interesting position for the fire rod. Let's put it like this. Like the first just after you're locked into Dark South Road.
Now, it would also work out pretty well for Illus if we were to pick up the hammer along this route, because then, you know, you'd have a couple of different ways of at least getting back to, Village of Outcasts to get to Skull Woods and all that. That book is also pretty interesting because we are heading naturally south through the Dark World, putting us kind of where we would need to be to get Bombo's tablet.
And definitely checking that on your way here. Probably want to check Kite Cave first. In this position. And then going, especially when you don't have a flute. Checking Hype Cave into Bumbo's tablet into Dipping Desert, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of like really uncomfortable, awkward routing going on from the item placement in the seed. I mean, there's some natural progression that we have, as you mentioned, heading west towards desert would make a lot of sense, but it doesn't feel the way you want it to as a runner, I don't think. Coming up super empty in Hype Cave.
And we have Yaga actually going to the back of T-Town here.
Well, I was kind of hoping for something a little bit better along the south route. Yagamoth might end up finding what we need here.
So we have the first set of some others that Illus is actually going to check. Palace of Darkness, Toe of Hera, Eat the Tablet. And that's it. I guess we can go to the back of Skull Woods as well.
Yeah, just right now it's super painful to do. I mean, who wants to go there from the pyramid, right? Well, until we find the Titan's Mitts, that flute will only just get Illus over to Kakariko quicker for that portal when we do get the means to access Dark World from there. There's really not a tremendous amount that the flute will do for him yet, unless there's somewhere in the light world he wants to go. Heading down to the basement of Thieves Town, still no hammer to check the left side big chest with, and still no small key, unfortunately, so still a chance we could end up finding it here. And that means we are not going to get that item on this pass.
Yeah, You were gonna say, unfortunately, like if we're lucky, we're not getting it. It's in the big chest, but that also means T's tongue is hammerlocked. But that doesn't change a lot for us. We're still getting all items, just logic-wise.
Well, very standard blind fight to work with. Yagamoth definitely not going to have any issues with this. This is something he's probably done a million times. Even with a little bit of damage here, it's a pretty straightforward third phase. In the meantime, we'll get Desert the first look with, now that I look at it, over 1,000 rupees to work with for Illus. If we ever have to fill potions later, we're in good shape. We were, of course, locked by the boots, but big key means we'll be able to do everything we need to here.
Yeah, small key is gonna be in the big chest. And now, like whether you or not you get both items on the right side. Let's see what Illus decides to do.
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier in the race, this is a pendant dungeon, so if Illus can avoid going to the boss, that's the idealist of scenarios. We do really want to find both items here on the right side.
Oh, 15 minutes, so that solves that book problem. I still think to leave that's a good item. Enough for you to not check Clanmo, even though he has an item.
And on top of that, I mean, there's definitely a likelihood of Illus finding the flute before having to go check that again. So being able to pair the back of, or for the Lamolus fight with the Misery Mire area would be more ideal, I think.
I'm actually not sure where Illus is going right now.
Palace of Darkness? No, we got a hobo check.
Oh, Ice Rod. He's getting the Ice Rod.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, better than forgetting it later.
I mean, if you find the hammer on the mountain, there's a chance with the medallion that you're able to clear TR, so it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so then I guess this points towards Illus heading back up the mountain, trying to do Dark Death Mountain soon. Well, we have hook shots, so I mean, there's a lot of completable items. And if I recall correctly, we haven't been to Hera yet, so Illus could do Hera, then come across the mountain, whether we find Hammer there or not. Yeah, so I mean, we can get a lot done.
One thing that could bail Illus out would actually be that the hammer is behind the flute.
Yeah, that would absolutely restrict enough to force Illus to go check Zora eventually. Alright, so we read about shovels on the tablet, and we'll probably not be checking that for quite a while. That is one more red herring that would be a reason for Illus to delay going to Zora, which is unfortunate.
I mean, he'll still do a lot before going to Zora, like Pod probably. Might want to go to Zora before going to Hammerless Ice Palace if it's locked behind the flute.
Alright, so apparently Illus here attempting to do a super speed setup for the Harapot. I'm personally not familiar with this particular setup, but the gist of it is we're trying to clip 1 pixel into the pot here, so that we can hookshot the center of it and drop into it, bring us to a warp that'll take us to the top of the tower. I don't know, this setup just looks really difficult to me.
I mean, I've tried a few times and like it's not. It is kind of iffy. I like the bomb setup personally.
Well, either way, Illus was able to accomplish it, so top of the tower we are, not worrying about checking the, or going through the loop to actually go down to the basement. And it appears Yagamoth also picking up the ice rod, probably thinking the same sort of thing for insurance.
Actually, going for Hera before checking Desert after getting the book. It's not that big of a deal, like especially when Illus just went there before going to his Dark Death Mountain. Like I mean, especially with that foot, he'll just fruit out of Hera to go to Desert.
I suppose there's a chance for Illus to kind of get a edge here if there is something important, say in Hookshot Cave or in Super Bunny Cave. Those are some things that could pay off really well for Illus in this chain. Alright, another baton pass, I suppose, as Yagamoth trying to off-screen the dead rock to get into the tower, as Illus jumps off the tower down to the other side of the mountain. Yagamoth finding the big key, also going to attempt the exact same setup, it looks like, for the Harapot, using select buffers, which is an interesting choice, kind of reflects Yagamoth's experience of the game, as that's a less commonly seen these days, but historically very prevalent menu buffer strat. Getting it very quickly. I have to imagine getting these Harapot clips in the first couple of attempts really is where the time save is over the regular strat. So
It is faster. It is way faster than timing the vanilla way.
here comes that Hookshot Cave, finding some cash in a bottle so far, nothing too valuable.
Still no hammer.
Getting our Turtle Rock Medallion Scout here, an Ether. As Yagamoth finishes up Moldorm, so both of our runners have collected their first crystals and have some choices in front of them, as Yagamoth will not be able to do anything else here.
So Illus probably going to finish Skullwoods. Depending on what he finds, he might decide to finish Thieves Down and the Smith Chain. I mean, it doesn't have a lot of choices aside from Pod or Ice Palace at this point.
I'm thinking at this point that it would be really, really brutal for Yagamoth if that hammer was, say, behind, like, over in the Mire area, because, I mean, there's a lot more things the Yagamoth can do without Titan's Mitts compared to Illus without the flute and hammer at the same time. You know what, actually, I'm going to retract that statement. I just word souped that, and that didn't sound right after I said it. There's a lot of things going on here between the flute and the Titan's Mitts deficit between each other, and I'm not even sure how to read this at this point.
I think if you're Yagamoth, you definitely check the Maya area before going up the mountains. Not a very long check. Like you have 3 items. 4 if you want to kill Anmo. Don't really want to kill Anmo after getting mids, to be honest.
Yeah, so between Lamolus, of course, Zora still got to be revisited by Illus. Not a ton of other one-off locations that we've outright skipped so far. Well, we have a Master Sword, half magic Fire Rod fight, of course, with Mothula over here on Illus's side. So lots of shots to work with. With the spins that we're seeing, it's very likely that Illus will only use the Fire Rod to pull him off the wall.
I mean, kind of easy to work with, like Master Sword, Fire Rod, Red Mail as well helps. Even though the spikes still do 100 damage, Moth still deals less damage and a lot of hearts.
Yeah, Illus made very quick work of that fight.
It gets its second item in Skullwoods.
Well, we have an opportunity to see if our pedestal today has anything of value for us. No reason not to check it if you have mirror and book. Although, trying to think of what it could be. Just a shield for us today.
So stay in the Dark Hold. So I'm like, there's a T-Sound play that Illus can do, and Smith Chain.
So I guess we also have the prospect of Ice Palace. That's something that entire thing, except for the vanilla big key area and Cold Stare himself. I mean, there's a lot of dungeon available in that. Come to think of it, no bow either. Palace of Darkness looking like a really nasty place to be. We need a very convenient key logic or sequence breaking to try and find anything of value in that choice. Probably a good reason why we haven't seen it from either of them.
Yeah, that definitely, like, not having bow or not even, like, just a bow. Because if first item in the shooter room is just not a key, you're logically bow out. And, like, you're looking for a lot still, so you don't really want to go there yet. Unless it's close to your last location.
So we haven't had the mitts. Ooh, wow. Vanilla tempered. I was about to add that we didn't have Titan's mitts for a minute, so we haven't had a chance to check Magic Batcave, which it looks like Illus is about to get. As we see Yagamoth also exterminating the infestation in Skull Woods. What does our friend Bad Albert have for us today?
Not the hammer. That's for sure.
I've had that happen to me in a race before, and let me tell you, that is the saltiest place in the world for the hammer, in my opinion.
I mean, it happens. I mean, there's like mids for Dark World access that just puts the hammer here. Those are nice, kinda. But there's those sequence that they just had where the mids are somewhere else, but they have to come back to check the magic that. And those one are very nasty.
Well, as we are dialing down on the potential locations for Hammer, we're going to get a exclusive location here out of Yagamoth, who has the Meyer area accessible with Flute. Meyer Shed, not turning up anything of importance on that quest, but has the opportunity to do Limolus as well, alongside Checkerboard Cave.
Alright, gonna check Checkerboard first, and then heading to Death Mountain, most likely, if not the hammer. Oh. Well, that might be a change of plan of what. I mean, I don't think you're heading to bot yet, but still, it's always nice to have. You can finish Eastern as well. I don't remember if there was an item still in Eastern.
Yeah, a minute since I've been keeping track of that, but I mean, the opportunity to do the combination of those things. Yagamoth for a second there, having to remember, oh wait, yeah, I don't have the hammer I need to use that portal. Or possibly considering Eastern first, like you mentioned. Either way, we will start from the Village of Outcasts, so a little bit of a hike to get over there. This is one reason that Illus would not want to be going to Palace of Darkness. The good news, though, is that because of a camera manipulation glitch with a potion, Illus can actually do everything except for Helmasaur King. And it appears that Illus is heading that way now with Tempered Sword in hand.
But the answer is here, and that it's actually Bola. I mean, like, the whole dungeon is actually Bola. Illus might be kind of. How can I put that? He knows he would need to find a bow somewhere.
It would be really interesting if we find another bow in here as well, as Illus would be able to do the same chain of events that Yagamoth is likely to attempt once Yagamoth's finished the Smith sequence here. And Palace of Darkness today is bow-locked.
Actually, bow-locked.
And Illus is out of there, understandably so.
So, T-Sound. What does it have? T-Sound, Ice Brothers, Zora.
The tough part here is that, you really don't want to do ice without that hammer. And Thieves Town without a hammer doesn't feel good either. Illus doesn't really have a preferable choice here. It's literally just, well, I'm going to ice because there's items.
I mean, you already skipped on T-Town twice. You did the first time you went there, and then he did Smith. Is he gonna go to Ice Brothers before? Yeah, he's going to Ice Brothers before Zora.
Well, the good news is that because Illus doesn't have a flute yet, is probably going to be mirroring after leaving this dungeon, which is actually the perfect situation to be heading up to Zora right after. So Illus might just end up doing that if we don't find something that we really need here. I'm sorry, if we don't find the hammer here, to be specific. As Illus jumps into Ice Palace, this will give Yagamoth a chance to catch up on some of these Dark Death Mountain checks, which won't point us to a whole lot, but will be another opportunity to clear out some more of the overworld.
I mean, what can barely lose out at this point is that Yagamoth is actually doesn't want to go to Pod or Eastern, because I think he's expecting to get the hammer before being able to go there, so he can do that in one trip.
Although it's starting to feel to me like it's very likely we're either finding a second bow here in Ice Palace, or the hammer is behind that first bow. Certainly running out of locations where it could be elsewise. I feel like this seed's starting to turn into who wants to do the thing that feels the worst first.
I mean, with that bow in hand, like, expecting Yagamoth to hit Pod Eastern before going to Ice.
Well, we will find out shortly. Yagamoth coming up empty, of course, out of the Hookshot Cave, takes the save and quit. setting up to go to pod, looks like.
Yeah, he didn't even bother mirroring before after hookshot gave. So yeah, that's the pod play. I'm guessing he's gonna do Eastern first. There's no commitment to that. You have to do it anyways.
Yeah, and it doesn't really hurt you to place the portal right there at the entrance. I mean, it's basically the exact same amount of time either way. With the added possibility of, if there's still an item on Armos, that you could have the hammer there. Well, Illus is routing here in Ice Palace. Did not use a bomb jump. Of course, we don't have that hammer to finish everything out in a super efficient way, so we're really just trying to get all the chests here, hoping for an extra key where we need it to cross over, efficiently.
That's the thing. At this point, we're expecting the hammer or something that would lead to the hammer, and that's why, like, if you don't have a proper key layout in Ice, it's kind of a pain to go around the bomb jump. I mean, the pegs before Cold Stare. So, like, I can get the decision of not doing the hammer jump, not the bomb jump in Ice Palace.
And there's our big key. Unfortunately, no small keys, so yeah, as you mentioned, this is a pain of a dungeon to try and route around at this point. And Illus will commit to going back for that big chest. And if Illus does a bomb jump this time around, could also do Cold Stare. Or I guess with the Cane of Samaria, could do Cold Stare.
You can, and you got the big key. You still need the small key in order to get Cold Stare without doing the bomb jump. But yeah, kind of a tough decision here because you don't have much left. Like, you have the Bag of Teased and you have Zora. That's it. That's your only in logic checks right now for Illus.
Yeah, so the sunk costs, of already having gone all the way over here to Ice Palace, spent the time clearing it out, it's hard to reason with yourself that, hey, I should leave an item here for later, when you have so few things to work with. Well, here comes the Armos fight from Yagamoth. Very well equipped, of course. We have all the arrows that we need, with a little bit of leeway, although the fast kill looks to be going just fine.
Alright, then we know something that will lead to hammer is in pod at this point. Or the hammer itself, obviously. But at this point, it has to be the hammer. So logically, actually log behind the flute. That is on Zora.
A somewhat cruel thought has crossed my mind, but we haven't found any of these required medallions yet.
That's the thing. I was thinking about it. It could just be Quake here.
I mean, like, I smile saying it because I'm not the one running it.
And Illus mirroring, so I'm guessing he's gonna check Zora right now. Not gonna be happy about it.
This is good news, though. Illus will do a little bit of finishing things out over in the southwest corner of the world. We didn't see a Lamolus fight from Yagamoth, as Yagamoth is in the area, so that is one potential reigning location, because we didn't find all the items in Desert yet.
Oh yeah, we still have Lambo, you're right.
Not having the hammer yet, Yagamoth will probably have to mirror here unless we find it in one of these two chests. And there's the flute pickup. A quick save and quit. Illus knows exactly where to go.
He's not gonna be happy about it as well. The only thing he's gonna find is a bow.
However, this is sort of like one of those dominoes falling moments where you just sense the momentum of the logic that you're unfurling with these few remaining locations that are being untangled when you find these items. I mean, flute to bow, you already know. Deeper into Palace of Darkness, Yagamoth still looking for any sign of light.
So there was the map and the big key in the front. So everything in the back. Since you need 4 small keys to get here. Actually doing the my own.
Yeah, more old school select buffer strats, which, I mean, does give you a little bit of more flexibility with how you time it. Bomb post medallion immediately, which is not at all needed, but you may have had your heart jump if you were looking for another medallion.
Why do we even have this medallion? I have a fire rod already. So completely
Hyrule needed a
useless.
new brand cereal. The
Oh, there's the
Bombos.
hammer.
Maybe the seed's trying to tell me I'm banned for bad puns, but the hammer dropping down here in Palace of Darkness gives Yagamoth the rest of the dungeon, and with the few remaining locations that Illus will have with this bow, we'll likely be heading in this direction anyway soon.
Still, like, a Eastern Palace behind and full clearing pod, I guess. Unless you don't have a hammer.
It's okay, Yagamoth did this too. Also, Illus choosing to revisit Palace of Darkness. I mean, he doesn't have to open it again, which is nice, but you still got to walk through all that stuff. At least has a convenient Aghanim portal here at the castle tower, or at the castle gate, to get over there. But as you mentioned, that's basically a 2 dungeon deficit at this point, which will be pretty tough to climb back from.
The thing is, like, there's also the fact that we don't have much to do. Like, the only thing that... I mean, that hammer opened Swamp Palace. It also opened Ice Palace in a sense, but... Swamp Palace is literally where you want to go after that. Because it's a crystal, obviously, so you want to clear it. But, like, TR is still closed. I don't really want to go to Pen and Ice Palace. I guess we have hammer bags and Spike Cave, but nah, not really checks you want to do before going. I mean, clearing your crystal.
If nothing else, I mean, I agree with you on the front of Swamp Palace, for being a crystal and so many items. It does feel appealing. I think the thing that really stinks about it as a runner is, hey, you're an hour and 10 minutes into the seed by the time you're thinking about going there. That doesn't feel good. Like, you get the impression that your opponent probably has had opportunities to pull ahead of you here. Anybody can potion glitch if you've learned the setup once or twice. So I imagine the fear of that is probably in both of these runners' minds right now.
I mean, like, there's that, but for Illus, it's 2 things. Like, that flute. Pretty sure she knows Yaga got it before him, and yeah, there's the chance that after Yaga, I know a lot of players just like Good Spot, even though they have like access to West Dark World, and they already had a lot of bottles going to the Dark World, if I remember correctly. Don't know if they had potions in them, but
we did have Waterfall Fairy give us a green. Well, that's our last remaining shield in the world on Helmasaur King, so Hammer really being the story of this dungeon. Other than that, Yagamoth still on the hunt for 2 medallions for our Go mode. Looks like your premonition is pretty accurate. Swamp Palace, the clear play in Yagamoth's mind.
yeah, I mean, Crystal Dungeons always your priority. And if the items are just on your way, then it's always good. But I'm expecting to find Ether before Quake, because we all know Quake's gonna be in Turtle Rock, right?
There's only one way it could possibly transpire. So into the Dam Drim, the water, and then of course Swamp Palace to work with. Until we found both of those medallions, we will likely be clearing everything we can. I don't see a reason at this point that either of them would skip things. And now for Illus's little minor heart attack as he finds his bombos and then decides to go kill some bosses real quick. Ah, yes, Yagamoth's a mana culture. Opting to walk up to the skull pot, smash it with a hammer, and then dash down, instead of wasting all the frames. And killing one of the Stalfos, which actually makes the water fill slightly quicker if you have the opportunity to kill him through the dash.
Saving the frames, as many as you can.
Speaking of more time saves, Illus, having taken a health refill on the way to the Palace of Darkness basement, will preserve sword beams. We'll only have to menu once down there. Still looking for the game to toss a coin or two to our Witchers. They are still looking for both of these medallions. Bombos already discovered. Yagamoth going to hold off on left side for now, which is not surprising. You could find both of these medallions in the back here, and then you would have no reason to even bother.
And that's the thing, like, even if you find one, like, after that you one item for go mode, don't really want to commit a lot into left side some that takes a lot of time.
Couple more chest locations here. Yagamoth gets the big key and will opt to continue on to the boss, as at this point very likely to be diving back into the dungeon. So you already know you're heading past it anyway. Finding a piece of heart. Still got Argus himself, as Illus finishes up a very efficient Helmosaur King fight. So it's starting to look to me like there's not really going to be any equipment difference here by the end of the seed. It's really going to be down to whether or not Illus has, the ability to find the medallions faster, or just simply to play the remaining seed faster.
Pretty much, like Tempered is already a lot. Silvers would help a little bit, I guess, but in terms of equipment, that's way more than enough.
A great phase 2 from Yagamoth on the Argus fight, finding a full heart container. Not the medallions that we're looking for.
Yeah,
Ice Palace ended up being it.
Yeah, let's see what it decides to go there. I think I just found an item in Ice Palace, and that's it. The rest were dungeon items. Decides to go back.
I mean, if we don't find it in the 3 remaining chests here, or even one of them at all, there is, of course, the possibility of Lamolus. Lamolus versus, going to Ice Palace. Illus knows that there's nothing on the pedestal. Yagamoth might not know that.
Not sure. He didn't do the check after killing Motora?
I don't remember, did he?
Pretty sure it did. Pretty sure it did.
Okay, good, good. Because otherwise, that would be a very awkward scenario where you'd be more likely to kill those bosses before really just checking the full dungeons.
I mean, there's Green Pendant in Ice Palace. We know Landwellers has an item as well. It's kind of a tough decision. And we have all those one-offs like Hammer Pegs, Spike Cave. Don't really want to go back for that. Decent Big has an item, apparently, as well.
Yeah, late hammer not really friendly for routing. You find that hammer late, and there are a ton of things you've likely orphaned. Ooh, Yagamoth getting one of those really rare hookshot clips that you can do across the northwest corner to the southwest corner of the main room of Swamp Palace. There's one exact pixel x-axis that you can line up on and actually reach yourself across. Doesn't do the cool one in this room through the block, but that's okay.
And this one is just cool. The other one actually saves time.
Right, exactly. You just gotta differentiate between actual speedrun saving, time stuff, and swag.
You really need to learn that one as well.
Fence dash
That's the
saves
last
70.
item. So that's the last item in Swamp. Not in Swamp. Illus might try and skip it. No, I mean, at this point, you kind of know that you're behind.
Yeah, with all of the double dips, and finding out, that fleet so late, I mean, yeah, it's a decision Illus can make, and it would be the right decision. That would be enough to shave a big chunk of time off of what Illus is behind by. But I mean, Yagamoth is heading back up to the mountain to Spike Cave. We'll certainly have done most of the remaining overworld checks. So we're probably going to find some medallions here pretty quick.
So deciding to go for overall checks before doing ice. So we're gonna see Spike Cave, most likely Hammer Pegs as well. And yeah, since you killed Iga, you kind of want to go out of this room and mirror out. It's faster, especially with the save and quit being long.
Yeah, 3 seconds additional for your save and quit cycle. It's just that adds up over time, particularly when you probably have a green magic potion, or two in your pocket and enough health to work with. Well, looks like we have the hammer pegs as well. Yagamoth gonna take the opportunity to get the full magic decanter from bonking that tree. Does not, unfortunately, have a quake to use alternatively. Not that he had magic anyway, but still probably wishes he had that option.
So not checking that T-Sound, I can get it.
If nothing else, I would at least delay it after doing this. And
That's a quake. That's actually the one you wanted to find for finding Ether, I guess. Because you can find Ether now behind that quake, and then you don't have to climb the mountain again.
the part that's rough for me is, like, I mean, while you will definitely be going to Misery Mire and making sure you have both items, there's only 2 potential chances of finding the ether in here.
4 now, since it opens Pyramid Ferry as well.
Oh yeah, 5-6, good point. So yeah, then there is more value to just diving right into here. I could see a scenario where, like, if somebody was dead set on trying to go mode some remaining dungeons, they might, try to find that ether elsewhere first. But as you mentioned, 4 locations, this is a little bit safer. And of course, there's no reason not to do a crystal if you can, right?
Definitely. Now the question is, like, if you find the big key, what do you do? Do you just go to Vitreous, hoping to find it on Vitreous, or do you go to Vitreous knowing that you're gonna enter again? Or do you just bang on that Pyramid Fairy to have your Ether?
That's so tough because I mean nobody really wants to do Mire 2 twice, right?
Definitely. I mean, depends on the key layout, of course. Like, if it's not a God Mire, you kind of committed to clear most of it.
Well, we
Obviously,
have the
you
first component.
Illus not skipping that left side swamp, unfortunately. Obviously, would try to skip that cutscene chat.
Yeah, that's the worst part about this dungeon, I would say, is that most of the time, if your routing doesn't just happen to pan out the way you want it to, you're going to pay for it and doubling back quite a bit. The one good news out of that, though, is that with only 2 items in this actual dungeon itself, oh wow, nice
That
boomerang.
was swag. That was a lot of swag.
That man knew what was going to happen before it even started to happen. Can you tell the Yagamoth's played this game before? And for a while. So we're seeing some hype in chat about a fairy stun prize. I had not even realized that the boomerang had hit there, so yeah, that's great knowledge. There's no reason that Illus would have noticed that before, as while we've used the hookshot on enemies, generally we've killed them with it.
That's actually the boomerang he found in Lance's swamp as well.
Well, sometimes going with what you know, and Yagamoth will definitely be more comfortable for the Vitreous fight, and can actually preserve spooky action, I think, depending on which Ancilla slot Boomerang is. I have no idea if that overwrites it, to be honest.
I'm not sure about that. So Yagamoth actually found both items in Mire. Both were fire locked. Only has to find the big key now. Nope. But yeah, nothing much we have left. Probably going to go for that Pyramid Fairy before doing the Ice Palace play.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, if you have the access to this
Come on,
and
you
logic.
don't have the big key. I guess he's saving the small key. I'm not sure if you grabbed the one under the pot.
Yeah, he did.
So yeah, he's probably saving that key.
Oh, okay. Gonna opt to go straight to Vitreous since it doesn't really take as long if you're re-entering the dungeon to go to the big chest.
And now Illus going for a very interesting play, I would say.
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected this first. I mean, I would understand it. I mean, there's a chance it could be Ether. We haven't found it yet here in Mire. Oh yeah, folks in chat are a little better at counting than I am. We already have the items here in Mire.
Yeah, they were in Firelock, both of them.
Oh, you said this. I just zoned out there for a second. I'm sorry.
Like, I think it was arrows and some money.
Yeah, so Vitreous to kill, and then... Jeez, it just doesn't feel good going to Pendant Ice Palace, knowing that that's pretty likely where you need to find the item. All the magic in the world, the Fire Rod and Tempered Sword. Illus trying to make quick work of this. Unfortunately, the crossing over Lamolus and Iframe is going to make this a 2-cycle, but certainly a fast fight either way.
Not
No
here.
Ether.
Just saving quitting out of here. Faster than going through the animation.
Well, deboost strats light, using the cane to not even take damage in the first place. A one cycle Vitreous fight with plenty of arrows to spare. Yagamoth going to try to figure out where the access to the seventh crystal is. A chance for a saving throw here for Illus if Yagamoth commits to doing Lamolus while in the neighborhood. Mirroring right away seems unlikely. Illus will, however, get the Quake here at Hammerpeg, so this puts us basically about a dungeon behind, depending on how long it takes for Yagamoth to go find this ether. As you foretold, Pyramid Fairy here on the menu, Yagamoth does have the bridge portal to work with, so this is a very quick turn-in, relatively speaking, I would say.
It is kind of quick, especially if he goes for a bomb dupe as well with boots. Going
That
for
would
it.
appear. Looks like it worked. Well, excellent use of select buffering throughout this entire run. Nice to see callbacks to older A Link to the Past tech, or I guess A Link to the Past meta. And no ether.
So I guess it's in ice or on Green Pendant or in the big chest of Thieves Town.
Now, I could definitely understand Illus going to Thieves Town instead of Ice Palace for the return voyage. So
Yeah, that's the thing.
yeah,
He
we're gonna
hasn't
find
cleared the
out which
back yet. He hasn't cleared the back yet. That's working for him. And I think he got the first item of Ice Palace. I think Piece of Heart was in the Pain Gated room.
Yes. And we'll have confirmation of that shortly as well. Yeah, so I mean, we're gonna have it one way or the other on either behind the Hammerlock locations here in Ice Palace or Thieves Town itself. Illis would be checking more things in Thieves Town overall. As you mentioned, he hasn't done any of the back half, so wouldn't be getting to that quickly, but would find out before having to kill the boss. Well, this has turned into quite the completionist of a seed. These two making pretty quick time, all things considered. About an hour and a half into this, and we have really exhausted this world. As our runners retrace each other's steps, great time to remind you folks, if you've been a fan of what you've been seeing on display today, whether it's select buffers or just horrendous situations with flutes that Illus has persevered through, you should give them both a follow on their Twitch channels. They both play Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past and presumably other games. Show them some love for putting on a show for us today. And speaking of items and keeping track of them, I have been wrong several times today when it comes to what we have and where we have it. I don't know what we would do without our tracker. Thank you to Worldwide Wimpy for covering us on the tracker front today. You've been spot on, and that helps us stay Sounding smarter than I am, at least. Lin here has been pretty insightful overall. Thanks for joining on this
I
call,
mean,
man.
yeah. Thanks for you joined me because I was the only one that signed a few days ago. So you joined me on this one. So
You know, that's something to talk about with this league. 64 races a week, two between each matchup of teams. For those of you who came into this later in this broadcast, you see the numbers next to their names at the top of the screen. Last locationers with 3 in parentheses. They've earned 3 team points for the 1 victory they had right before this race. The 0, of course, for not getting any points for the loss on the team. And then if they tie, it's 1 point. So this will all factor into the 7-week schedule where playoffs will be determined and seeded in that order. There's
there
our
it is.
yeah. So this is the second game of the week for these 2 teams, and if all things transpire as we would expect them, Yagamoth has a healthy advantage towards evening up this 2-game series between the teams. Amazingly, Yagamoth, representing the Sexy Ganons, will hit his go mode before before 90 minutes, which, all things considered, I'm actually kind of surprised by. I get the feeling with a seed like this, it's either 90 minutes or a lot longer, depending on your skill level. It takes a lot of time to clear out the world when you don't have a hammer to work with.
I mean, yeah, you could say like those runners could have gone to bot after killing Aga and gotten that hammer out of the but still, that would mean a double deep required of pot. At the end of the day, that ether was independent Ice Palace. Like even hammer breaks was kind of out of the way at this point since you didn't have mids the first time going through Bitter of Outcast. Because you needed that book from K45, was it? I think.
Yes. Yeah, we had K45 in a weird order of things because of how we were finding all these items, and it naturally led us to Bombos, but just ended up being important in general.
So overall, the items were in really nasty spot. Like, had to get that boat, get those mids, get the boat, get the hammer. But like, even if you were able to sequence break that hammer, it wouldn't help a lot in order to retrieve the last remaining pieces of the puzzle, like that quake and the ether.
If anything, it would just give you the maximum potential if you were doing a really weird route to stumble into the god route. But I mean, something you might see in a race of 100 people, not something you'd expect to see in a head-to-head. Illus having a lot of the same thoughts regarding exhausting hammer locations and things blocked by the hammer. We'll check the Pyramid Fairy as well. Not opting for a bomb dupe, but we'll be able to. Well, as soon as he heads back into Ice Palace, we'll be able to make his way up to Turtle Rock as well. So I wouldn't say it's a full dungeon difference or separation, but it's in the neighborhood of it. Illus will know exactly where to go in Ice Palace and have all the doors open pretty much. Well, it almost seems like Yagamoth hasn't even bothered with powder at all this seed. I haven't seen it myself. Having plenty of opportunities to restock, but the confidence that we see in Turtle Rock just comes from a lot of experience in this dungeon. Opting with Red Mail, of course, to not bother. Ultimately, a good decision because you'll have opportunities later in the dungeon if you really are feeling threatened.
yeah, since hasn't cleared the back of teeth down, yeah, not really surprised about that play.
I think at this point, really the only redeeming item you could find is, and this would only save you a little bit of the time spent, but silvers could potentially be a little helpful since you're already back here anyway. But we already know this is not going to be productive. I definitely understand this decision, though. Having spent as much time as Illus did in Ice Palace, it does not feel good to head back there. This was just a conscious decision to avoid this part of this dungeon. And will definitely be full completable and a very convenient, not having to think about it too hard, option. Pretty straightforward to work with. Well, Yagamoth remembering the stun prize might be part of the reason why we didn't even have to bother with powder at all. Not that we're short on magic or anything, but the ability to at least have that safety. Pretty awesome decision, in my opinion. Yagamoth will be pretty protected for the rest of this.
Actually surprised. It's not like they're out of safety. It's like they have a lot of bottles. Of course, they have Green Goose, but still, I mean, you're still low here. But I'm like red mail, 14 hearts.
Looking at a very fast Trinex fight. Something that always amazes me is just how much explosives this thing carries in its shell and somehow doesn't just like explode on contact with the fire rod.
So we are about to enter Ganon's tower. I think there's something happening before we get there.
Yeah, so you see a whole bunch of numbers going around in chat because people want to play this game where we guess the number of chests we're going to check before we get the big key. 1 through 22, throw it in chat. I don't know if the command went out in time. But yeah, if it ends up being the right guess, you get points on a leaderboard, whether you're the first or not. The first person, of course, gets the most. Where do you think we're going to find it today, Len?
I'm gonna guess 7. I think. Always going for my lucky number.
And
What about
as
you?
usual, in the process of explaining the game, I forget to put it into chat. Well, 12 was my guess.
Yagamoth having a little bit of trouble with those Southos. Not Southos. Gyppos. Southos is are on the other side.
So 5 and 6, no big key just yet. Get an opportunity to take a look at the torch here, which does not have it. Although, if we were a little lower in health, Yagamoth might consider it. But with all of the safeties we have at our disposal, not worth the bonk and the time.
Yeah, definitely not. Not activating
Whoa!
the switch. Interesting choice. Adding up to the bone count, I guess. But this is the first time I've seen that. It's actually really cool.
Trading fantasy points for swag, the true hero of the chat. And I joke. For those of you who aren't initiated, there is actually like a side thing where people are kind of organizing what we call fantasy, Link to the Past randomizer, and things like bonks and how many swords you have available to you are tracked. Fun thing that a few people put together this season. But if you're interested, check out the Link to the Past Randomizer League Discord, and there's more information into that if you at least want to follow along with it like I do.
Where we at now? 12? 11? 13. 13. Should be 13. And the silvers are just in GT. Still no big Cheeto.
Yeah, so I mean, at least we'll get use out of these silvers. One more thing that doesn't help Illus at this point, it would take a lot of horrible things going wrong for Yagamoth to blow this lead. Having a pretty commanding presence going up to the tower, I imagine, before Illus will even be able to enter Turtle Rock. A lot of tough situations happening in today's seed. Getting randoed for one, Illus certainly feeling the pain of RNG the worst. But also some decisions that were painful to deal with, having to double dip certain dungeons, having to do unintuitive routing to find the items he needed. Yagamoth making the best of that, but both of these runners putting on a great display today, I think.
There was Urbiki at spot 18. Congratulations, Chisaratsu. Having guessed 18 first. And as Yagamoth is climbing Ganon's tower, Illus hits go mode.
Yeah, so there's the knowledge of how to get into Turtle Rock with that acquired. Certainly not spending any more moments in Ice Palace today. I'm sure Illus might be like concerned about next seed's Ice Palace at this point. But certainly heading up to the mountain to finish up the last stretch of the game. Everything else we have left to do is either here or on top of that pyramid. Yagamoth nearly at the top of the tower, actually in the middle of the gauntlet. Gauntlet 2 and 3 looking pretty smooth as far as I see. And then with Fire Rod equipped, should be able to get through the rest of this pretty efficiently. Might end up using a potion to refill magic on the way up.
I mean, with silvers, it's still fine. You're not spending a lot of magic here.
A part of me thought he would avoid the lag frames in the menu. Well, a great execution with the silver arrows on the Lamolus, getting some early kills as well. We're going to see standard fare for the rest of the climb, it looks like. With the Canis Samari, of course, on the 2 Wizrobe rooms, second one being a little more difficult than the first, but Yagamoth's done this plenty of times.
And saving magic here, just shooting the land so you don't have to take the refill here and being able to go up directly. Unless you shoot. I mean, you still have enough magic. That shot to the left could have been a bit problematic here.
Yeah, being able to use a lamp from more than one tile away can save you a little bit in those torture rooms, but it's just one of those parts of the game that you really want to just nail the first time. No, there's your last gas before Ganon. Yagamoth just has a quick sword spin and a slash to take care of Moldorm. Already has the hookshot equipped because, plan ahead. Probably will not be checking the last chest for anything. We already have our silvers, so just down to some angle math and Ganon.
I mean, you don't really need a butter at this point. Even though, like, you don't really have a lot of chests where it could be, because you basically cleared the whole game, aside from TR.
For as much of the world as we've seen, I'm actually surprised you don't have more hearts picked up.
That's true. Like, what do we have there? We have Later Bridge, I guess Mimic Cave, and
not a whole lot else.
and like Tile Room and 3 chests behind Ice Armors, I think.
Cold Stare.
Oh yeah, we have Green Pendant, I guess. I think we got all 3 items in Ice. It's only Green Pendant.
Yeah, so then literally just a Hazrilla. I guess we left a lot of boss containers. Well, an hour and 46 minutes in, Yagamoth having defeated or vanquished Aghanim for the second time, in sequence actually, interestingly enough, we'll have a Tempered Sword Silver Ganon fight. Very comfortable place to be with Red Mail. Not the greatest health to work with, but certainly knows how to 1+1 this cycle. Unfortunately, with a little bit of a delayed slash after the first warp, probably trying to get a sword spin, I imagine. But should be able to, with the cape here, clean this up pretty efficiently.
Yeah, I think he still has like bottles with green goose, like, and you're not really worried about magic.
And that fairy.
And then fairies, and you have silver, like, no point saving a lot of resources here.
For those of you who haven't watched a whole lot of the Link to the Past Randomizer, they will have the same RNG for all their boss fight encounters that have like certain counts. So Ganon will warp a certain number of times, Aghanim will have a certain number of blue ball attacks. So opportunity for them to have virtually identical fights. Yagamoth put in the 3rd and almost the 4th arrow. Unfortunately, the hit there actually stuns Ganon for a second there, but that'll be enough. Go ahead and throw your GGs into chat, folks. Yagamoth crossing over the finish line will finish in first place with an official SRL time of 1 hour, 47 minutes, and 55 seconds. GG. And it would appear that immediately following, before walking into the Turtle Rock fight, Illus has opted to forfeit from the race. Understandable after the extreme journey that this seed has been. Well, we'll pull these two in for an interview if they both like to. Of course, Yagamoth we have here in the waiting room. We'll see if we can get Illus as well. And we are joined by both racers, actually. GG, folks. Congratulations on mentally surviving this experience. This looked like the least fun seed to run.
GG, Illus.
GG, Yaga.
That was a mean seed.
We've had a few of those recently.
Yeah, curious enough, I think most of them I had when Illus was in the race too. So it's kind of interesting. So we are each other's bad luck charm, maybe, or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, like I already told Yaga in SRL chat, but that Ice Palace dip without the hammer was like, yeah, really bad. And I knew afterwards that I had just assumed that Yaga didn't get the flute early or something, which is not the best assumption because we could have had a bit of money and paid Zora, but I just refused to go to the 300 on the Zora ledge, for example, or I didn't check the bush grabs, which I kind of regret a bit more. Because on the South Shore it's kind of an easy check for the bush grabs. So yeah, I might have to be more careful next time, but it seemed like it was pretty bad luck as well.
Well, there was a piece of information that I think you might be surprised to find out. Because of how late we found the boomerang, I don't think anybody was really checking stun prizes until then. So the Yagamoth actually found out there's fairy drops off of that.